The sound of Robert's fork scraping against his dinner plate filled the silence between them. Camille watched her husband of 8 years push his food around, his eyes avoiding hers across their dining table. The same table where they'd shared thousands of meals, planned vacations, and talked about their future children. Tonight something felt different. Wrong. "I need to tell you something," Robert finally said, setting down his fork with a deliberate slowness that made Camille's stomach clench. His voice carried a weight she'd never heard before, a finality that made her hands tremble as she reached for her water glass. "What is it?" she asked, though part of her already knew she didn't want to hear the answer. Robert looked up at her for the first time that evening, his brown eyes holding something she couldn't quite place. "Guilt? Relief? I think we need to take a break." The words hung in the air like a physical thing, heavy and suffocating. Camille felt her world tilt on its axis. A break from what? From us. From this marriage. I need some time to figure things out. He was already standing, as if sitting still would make this conversation more difficult than it already was. Figure what out? Camille's voice came out smaller than she intended. She cleared her throat and tried again. "Robert, what are you talking about? We're married. You don't just take a break from marriage." "I know this is sudden," he said, running his hands through his dark hair in that way he always did when he was nervous. "But I've been thinking about this for a while. I feel like I'm losing myself. Like I don't know who I am anymore." Camille stood up slowly, her legs feeling unsteady beneath her. "Who you are? You're my husband. We've been together for 10 years, married for 8. We have a life together. A home. Plans." "That's exactly what I mean," Robert said, his voice gaining strength as if he'd rehearsed these words. "Everything is planned. Everything is predictable. I wake up, go to work, come home, eat dinner, watch TV, go to bed. Repeat. I'm 32 years old, and I feel like my life is already over." The words hit Camille like a slap. "So our life together feels like death to you?" "That's not what I meant." "That's exactly what you meant." Camille's shock was rapidly transforming into something sharper, more dangerous. "You want to know what I think? I think you're having a midlife crisis at 32. I think you're being selfish and dramatic." Robert's jaw tightened. "This is exactly why I need space. You always think you know what I'm feeling better than I do. Because I've been with you for 10 years. I know you better than anyone." Camille's voice was rising now, 8 years of taking care of him, supporting him, building a life with him, fueling her anger. "I know when you're stressed about work, I know when you're worried about your parents, I know when you're tired. And right now, I know you're running away from something." "Maybe I am," Robert said quietly. "Maybe I need to run." The admission hung between them like a chasm. Camille felt tears threatening, but she wouldn't let them fall. "Not yet." "How long?" "What? How long do you need?" Robert shrugged, a gesture so casual it made Camille want to scream. "I don't know. A month? Maybe more?" "A month?" Camille repeated, her voice flat. "You want to abandon our marriage for a month to find yourself?" "I'm not abandoning anything. I'm taking a break. There's a difference." "Where will you go?" "I'll stay at my brother's place. Tyler said I could use his guest room for as long as I need." Of course Tyler had known about this before she did. Tyler, who'd never been married, who spent his weekends at bars and dating apps. Tyler, who'd always thought Robert had settled down too young. "When?" Camille asked. "Tonight. I already packed a bag." Robert gestured toward the hallway, and Camille noticed for the first time that his work bag was sitting by the front door, bulging with more than just his laptop and files. "Tonight," she echoed. "You're leaving tonight. I think it's better if we don't drag this out." Camille nodded slowly, her mind struggling to process the speed at which her life was changing. This morning she'd been a happily married woman. She'd kissed Robert goodbye as he left for work, reminded him to pick up milk on his way home, and spent her lunch break looking at vacation destinations on her computer. Now she was becoming a woman whose husband was leaving her to find himself. "What do I tell people?" she asked. "Tell them whatever you want. Tell them I'm a bastard. Tell them you're better off without me." Robert's voice cracked slightly. "Maybe you are." "Don't," Camille said sharply. "Don't make this about protecting me. This is about you being a coward." Robert flinched, but he didn't deny it. Instead, he walked to the front door and picked up his bag. "I'll call you in a few days." "Don't," Camille said. "Don't call me. If you want space, then take it. All of it." For a moment, Robert looked like he might say something else. His hand hovered over the doorknob, and Camille found herself hoping he would change his mind, that he would put down his bag and tell her this was all a terrible mistake. Instead, he opened the door and stepped into the cool evening air. "I'm sorry, Camille. I really am." Then he was gone, leaving her standing in the entryway of their home, surrounded by the life they'd built together. The silence that followed was deafening. Camille walked back to the dining room and looked at their abandoned dinner. Robert's plate was still half full, his napkin crumpled beside it. She picked up both plates and carried them to the kitchen, scraping the food into the garbage disposal. The mechanical grinding sound filled the quiet house, but it couldn't drown out the sound of her heart breaking. She thought about calling her sister or her best friend Nicole, but she wasn't ready to say the words out loud yet. Saying them would make it real, and she wasn't sure she was ready for that reality. Instead, she poured herself a glass of wine and sat on the couch in their living room, looking around at the space that had felt so warm and full just hours ago. The photos on the mantel showed her and Robert at their wedding, on vacations, at family gatherings. In every picture they looked happy, content, and love. When had that changed? When had Robert started feeling trapped by the life they'd built together? Camille took a sip of wine and tried to remember the last time they'd had a real conversation. Not about work or groceries or whose turn it was to pay the electric bill, but about their dreams, their fears, their hopes for the future. She couldn't remember, and that realization scared her more than Robert's departure. Maybe he was right. Maybe they had gotten comfortable, predictable. But wasn't that what marriage was supposed to be? A safe harbor, a place where you could be yourself without judgment or fear. Apparently not, according to Robert. The house felt too quiet, too empty. Camille turned on the television, but the laugh track from the sitcom felt mocking. She turned it off and went upstairs to their bedroom. Robert's side of the closet was noticeably emptier. He'd taken his work clothes, his casual clothes, his shoes. But he'd left behind the sweater she'd bought him for Christmas, the one he'd claimed was his favorite. He'd left behind his cologne, his books, his side of the bed. Camille changed into her pajamas and climbed into bed, but sleep felt impossible. She stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what had just happened. 8 years of marriage, and it had ended with a casual dinner conversation. She thought about their wedding day, how Robert had cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. How he'd whispered in her ear during their first dance that he was the luckiest man alive. How they'd stayed up all night talking about their future, about the children they would have, the places they would travel, the life they would build together. None of that mattered now. Robert wanted space, wanted to find himself, wanted to figure out who he was without her. Well, Camille decided she would figure out who she was without him too. The first thing Camille noticed was the silence. Not the comfortable quiet of a peaceful morning, but the heavy, oppressive silence of a house that felt too big for one person. She'd been living alone for 3 days now, and the emptiness seemed to echo in every room. She stood in the kitchen, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold while she stared out the window at their backyard. The garden they'd planted together last spring was beginning to bloom, but she couldn't bring herself to care about the flowers. Everything felt distant, like she was watching her life through a thick piece of glass. Her phone buzzed on the counter, and for a moment her heart jumped. But it wasn't Robert. It was her boss, asking if she was feeling better. She'd called in sick for the past 2 days, unable to face the questions and concerned looks from her colleagues. "I'm fine," she texted back, though she wasn't sure that was true. "I'll be in tomorrow." The lie came easily. She'd been telling a lot of lies lately. To her sister who called to check on her, to her neighbors who asked where Robert was, to herself when she insisted she was handling this well. The truth was, she felt like she was drowning. 8 years of marriage had created routines, patterns, a shared rhythm of life that had been suddenly interrupted. She didn't know how to cook dinner for one person. She didn't know what to watch on TV without Robert's input. She didn't know how to fill the long evening hours that had once been occupied by comfortable conversation and shared silence. Camille forced herself to drink the cold coffee and went upstairs to get dressed. She had to go to the grocery store, had to buy food for one instead of two, had to pretend to be a functioning adult when she felt like a lost child. The grocery store was a minefield of memories. The pasta sauce Robert liked, the beer he preferred, the ice cream they shared on Sunday nights. She found herself standing in the cereal aisle, staring at the brand Robert always bought, wondering if she should get it out of habit or choose something different. "Camille? Is that you?" She turned to find Mrs. Patterson, their elderly neighbor, approaching with a cart full of groceries and a warm smile. "Oh, hi, Mrs. Patterson." Camille tried to arrange her face into something resembling happiness. "I haven't seen you and Robert in the yard lately. Everything okay?" The question was innocent enough, but it hit Camille like a physical blow. She opened her mouth to give another lie, but found herself unable to speak. Mrs. Patterson's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "Oh honey, are you all right? Robert's staying at his brother's for a while," Camille managed to say. He needed some space. The older woman's eyes filled with understanding. She'd been married for 53 years before her husband passed away last winter. She knew the weight of those words. "I'm so sorry, dear. If you need anything, anything at all, you know where to find me." Camille nodded, not trusting her voice. She grabbed a box of cereal at random and hurried toward the checkout, desperate to escape the sympathy in Mrs. Patterson's eyes. Back home, she put away the groceries and tried to settle into some kind of normal routine. She did laundry, cleaned the house, answered emails. But every task felt hollow, meaningless. She was going through the motions of living without actually feeling alive. That evening, her best friend Nicole called. "Okay, I'm coming over," Nicole announced without preamble. "I've been giving you space to process, but 3 days is long enough. We need to talk." "I'm fine." "No, you're not. I can hear it in your voice. I'm bringing wine and Chinese food and we're going to figure this out." Before Camille could protest, Nicole had hung up. 20 minutes later, she was at the door with bags of takeout and a bottle of Camille's favorite red wine. Nicole was everything Camille wasn't: bold, outspoken, fiercely independent. She'd been married once, briefly, in her 20s, and had sworn off serious relationships ever since. "Life's too short to tie yourself to one person," she always said, though Camille had never understood that philosophy until now. "Okay," Nicole said, settling onto the couch with a glass of wine. "Tell me everything." Camille found herself recounting the conversation with Robert, the sudden departure, the days of silence that followed. Nicole listened without interruption, her expression growing darker with each detail. "What a coward," Nicole said when Camille finished. "He couldn't even give you a real reason. Just vague nonsense about finding himself." "Maybe he's right though," Camille said quietly. "Maybe we did get too comfortable. Maybe we stopped growing." "Bullshit," Nicole said firmly. "Marriage is supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to be a partnership where you support each other's growth, not abandon ship the moment things feel routine." "But what if he's unhappy? What if I've been holding him back?" Nicole leaned forward, her eyes intense. "Camille, listen to me. You didn't force him to marry you. You didn't trick him into 8 years of marriage. He made choices, and now he's running away from the consequences of those choices. He said he needs to figure out who he is. He's 32, not 18. He should know who he is by now. And if he doesn't, that's his problem to solve, not yours." Camille took a sip of wine, feeling its warmth spread through her chest. "I just keep thinking about all the things we planned. The vacation we booked for next month. The renovations we were going to do on the kitchen. The conversations we had about having kids." "Those were his plans too," Nicole reminded her. "He was part of all of that. He can't just decide he wants out because it's convenient." "So what do I do?" Nicole was quiet for a moment, considering. "You focus on yourself. You remember who you were before Robert and you figure out who you want to be now." "I don't remember who I was before Robert. We've been together since college." "Then you figure out who you are now, independent of him. This might be the best thing that's ever happened to you." Camille looked at her friend skeptically. "My husband leaving me is the best thing that's ever happened to me? Your husband showing you his true colors before you wasted any more time on him might be." That night, after Nicole left, Camille sat in her living room and really looked around for the first time in days. The house was clean, organized, peaceful. She'd always been the one who managed their home, who decorated and maintained and improved. Robert had lived here, but this space was hers. She thought about what Nicole had said about figuring out who she was. It had been so long since she'd thought about herself as an individual rather than half of a couple. What did she want? What made her happy? She picked up a notepad and started writing. Not about Robert, not about their marriage, but about herself. Her career goals, her hobbies, her dreams. Things she'd put on hold or pushed aside in favor of their shared life. The list was longer than she'd expected. She wanted to travel to Italy, something Robert had always dismissed as too expensive. She wanted to take art classes, something she'd talked about for years but never pursued. She wanted to focus on her career, maybe pursue the promotion she'd been considering. For the first time in 3 days, Camille felt something other than sadness. She felt a spark of something that might have been excitement. Maybe Nicole was right. Maybe this was an opportunity, not just a loss. But as she headed upstairs to bed, passing the empty spaces where Robert's things had been, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something. That there was more to Robert's sudden departure than he'd told her. The thought followed her into her dreams, where she searched through empty rooms, looking for answers that stayed just out of reach. 2 weeks after Robert left, Camille was finally starting to feel like herself again. She'd returned to work, focusing on her projects with an intensity that surprised her colleagues. She'd started going to the gym regularly, something she'd neglected during the last few years of marriage. She'd even signed up for a weekend art class, fulfilling one of the items on her list. But the nagging feeling that something wasn't right continued to grow stronger. It started with small things. Tyler, Robert's brother, avoiding her eyes when she ran into him at the coffee shop downtown. Her sister mentioning that she'd seen Robert at a restaurant across town, though he'd told Camille he was staying close to Tyler's apartment to avoid complications. Then there was the credit card statement. Camille had been paying their bills as usual, maintaining the household finances that had always been her responsibility. When she opened the statement for Robert's personal credit card, she noticed charges she didn't recognize. Expensive dinners at restaurants they'd never been to together. Purchases from boutiques and flower shops. Her hands trembled as she stared at the paper. The charges were recent, from the past 2 weeks. During the time Robert was supposed to be staying at Tyler's place, soul-searching and figuring out his identity. The charges painted a different picture. They looked like the expenses of someone trying to impress someone else. Camille set the statement down and stared at it for a long moment. She could ignore it, pretend she hadn't seen it. She could trust that Robert was being honest about needing space, that there was an innocent explanation for the charges. But deep down she already knew the truth. She picked up her phone and called Nicole. "I need you to come over," she said when Nicole answered. "And bring your laptop." "What's wrong?" "I think Robert's lying about why he wanted a break." Nicole arrived within 30 minutes, her expression grim. She'd brought her laptop as requested, along with a bottle of wine and a determined look that Camille recognized. "Show me," Nicole said, settling onto the couch. Camille handed her the credit card statement, watching as Nicole's eyes scanned the charges. Her friend's expression grew darker with each item. "Son of a bitch," Nicole muttered. "Dinner at Milano's. That place is expensive and romantic. Flowers from Patricia's garden. That's the boutique place downtown where you go when you want to impress someone." "Maybe he's buying things for his mother," Camille said weakly, though she didn't believe it herself. 3 expensive dinners in 2 weeks? And look at this, lingerie from that fancy shop on 5th Street. Unless Robert's developed some interesting new hobbies, he's not buying that for himself. Camille felt sick. "I don't want to jump to conclusions." "Sometimes conclusions are the only place to jump to," Nicole said, opening her laptop. "Do you want to know the truth or not?" Camille nodded, though part of her wanted to run away from whatever they were about to discover. Nicole's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Let's start with social media. Does Robert have Instagram?" "Just for work stuff. He never posts personal things." "What about Facebook?" "He deleted it last year. Said it was a waste of time." Nicole tried several social media platforms, but Robert's profiles were either non-existent or dormant. "Smart man. Or guilty man. Let's try a different approach." She opened a new browser window and began searching for Robert's name combined with the restaurants from the credit card statement. Nothing came up immediately, but Nicole wasn't deterred. "What about his coworkers? Anyone he's mentioned recently?" Camille thought about Robert's job at the marketing firm downtown. He'd always been social with his colleagues, but he'd never mentioned anyone specific. He talks about his team meetings, but he's never mentioned names. "What's the name of his company again?" "Brennan Marketing Solutions." Nicole typed the company name into her search, pulling up their website. She clicked on the team page, revealing photos and names of all the employees. "Do any of these people look familiar?" Camille scanned the faces, recognizing Robert's photo among the marketing executives. She was about to say no when her eyes stopped on a photo in the corner. The woman was blonde, petite, with the kind of polished beauty that came from expensive hair and makeup. She was smiling at the camera with perfect white teeth, her name listed as Rebecca Chin, Senior Account Manager. "Her," Camille said, pointing at the photo. "I've seen her before." "Where?" "At the company Christmas party last year. She was friendly with Robert. I remember thinking she was a little too friendly, but I told myself I was being paranoid." Nicole clicked on Rebecca's profile, which showed her education, experience, and a brief bio. She's been with the company for 2 years. Single, according to her LinkedIn profile. "How do you know she's single?" "Because her relationship status isn't listed, and she doesn't have any photos with a significant other. Plus, look at this." Nicole had found Rebecca's Instagram account. Her photos were a mix of professional shots, travel photos, and pictures with friends. But in several recent photos, There was a hand or an arm that belonged to someone not shown in the frame. Someone who had been carefully cropped out. Could be anyone, Camille said, though her heart was pounding. Could be. But let's see if we can find out more. Nicole spent the next hour digging deeper, cross-referencing locations and dates. She found Rebecca's check-ins at the same restaurants that appeared on Robert's credit card statement. She found photos of Rebecca wearing jewelry and carrying flowers, posted on the same dates as Robert's purchases. The evidence was circumstantial, but it was damning. "I'm sorry, Camille," Nicole said softly. "But I think we both know what this means." Camille stared at the laptop screen, at the photos of Rebecca looking happy and glowing, at the evidence of Robert's deception. The break he'd asked for wasn't about finding himself. It was about being free to pursue another woman without the inconvenience of a wife. "How long do you think it's been going on?" she asked. "Based on this? At least a few months. Maybe longer." Camille thought back to the last few months of their marriage. Robert's late nights at work, his distraction during conversations, his decreased interest in intimacy. The signs had been there, but she'd attributed them to stress or the natural ebb and flow of a long marriage. "I'm such an idiot," she said. "No, you're not. You're a trusting wife who believed her husband when he said he needed space. He's the one who's been lying. What do I do now?" Nicole closed the laptop and looked at her friend seriously. "You decide what you want to do. You can confront him, you can wait and see if he comes clean, or you can start protecting yourself." "Protecting myself how?" "Get a lawyer. Document everything. If he's been spending money on another woman, you need to know about all of it. If he's planning to leave you for her, you need to be prepared." The reality of the situation hit Camille like a physical blow. Her marriage wasn't just taking a break, it was over. Robert had already moved on, emotionally and physically. He was just too cowardly to tell her the truth. "I need to think," she said. "Of course. But Camille, don't let him string you along. You deserve better than this." After Nicole left, Camille sat alone in her living room, staring at the wedding photo on the mantel. The couple in the picture looked so happy, so sure of their future together. She wondered when Robert had stopped feeling that way, when he'd started looking at other women, when he'd decided their marriage was something to escape from rather than something to nurture. She thought about calling him, demanding answers, screaming at him for his betrayal. But what would that accomplish? He'd already made his choice. He'd chosen Rebecca over her, chosen deception over honesty, chosen the excitement of a new relationship over the commitment of marriage. Instead, Camille went to her computer and began researching divorce attorneys. If Robert wanted to play games, she would be ready. If he wanted to pretend his departure was about self-discovery while he pursued another woman, she would let him. But she wouldn't be caught unprepared when he finally decided to tell her the truth. As she read through attorney profiles and reviews, Camille felt something she hadn't experienced in weeks: determination. She was tired of being the victim in this situation. It was time to take control of her own story. The appointment with the divorce attorney was scheduled for Thursday morning. Camille had chosen Patricia Reeves based on her reputation for being thorough, discreet, and aggressive when necessary. The law office was in downtown, housed in a sleek building that spoke of success and competence. Camille arrived early, dressed in her best business suit, carrying a folder full of documents she'd spent the past week gathering. Financial statements, property deeds, insurance policies, and printed copies of Robert's credit card charges. She felt like she was preparing for the most important business meeting of her life. Patricia Reeves was a woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes. She greeted Camille with a firm handshake and led her to a conference room overlooking the city. "Tell me about your situation," Patricia said, settling into her chair with a legal pad and pen. Camille explained Robert's request for a break, his departure, and her recent discovery of his relationship with Rebecca. Patricia listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. "How long have you been married?" Patricia asked. 8 years. "Any children?" "No." "Do you own property together?" "Yes, our house. We bought it 5 years ago." "Joint bank accounts?" "Yes, checking and savings. Plus retirement accounts and investments." Patricia nodded, writing down each detail. "Have you spoken to your husband since he left?" "He called once about a week ago. He wanted to know if I was okay. I told him I was fine and that he should take all the time he needed." "Good. Don't contact him unless it's absolutely necessary. If he's involved with another woman, any communication from you could be seen as harassment or an attempt to interfere with his new relationship." The words stung, but Camille appreciated Patricia's directness. "What are my options?" Camille asked. "Several. You can wait and see if he comes back and tries to reconcile, though based on what you've told me that seems unlikely. You can confront him about the affair and demand he end it. Or you can file for divorce immediately. What do you recommend? Patricia leaned back in her chair. Honestly, I'd recommend getting your affairs in order first. Make sure you have access to all your financial information, document everything you can about his relationship with this other woman, and prepare yourself emotionally for what's coming. What do you mean? Men who ask for breaks rarely come back. They're usually trying to ease their guilt by making the separation seem temporary. He's probably planning to file for divorce himself once he's comfortable with his new relationship. The words hit Camille like a slap, but they also clarified something that had been nagging at her. Robert wasn't coming back. He'd already moved on, he just hadn't told her yet. So what should I do? Be proactive. Don't wait for him to dictate the terms of your divorce. File first, ask for what you want, and make sure you're protected financially. They spent the next hour going through Camille's financial documents, discussing property division, spousal support, and legal strategies. Patricia was thorough and efficient, but also surprisingly compassionate. One more thing, Patricia said as they wrapped up. I know this is painful, but try not to take this personally. His affair isn't a reflection of your worth as a person or as a wife. Some people are just selfish and immature. Camille left the law office feeling strange. Not happy exactly, but empowered. For the first time since Robert left, she felt like she was taking control of her situation rather than simply reacting to it. She drove back to her office, where she threw herself into work with renewed energy. Her current project was a marketing campaign for a new restaurant chain, and she found herself applying the same strategic thinking she'd used in her meeting with Patricia. You seem different, her colleague James observed during their afternoon meeting. More focused. I feel more focused, Camille replied. I'm remembering how much I enjoy this work. It was true. During her marriage, she'd sometimes felt guilty about the long hours she spent at the office, the passion she brought to her projects. Robert had occasionally complained that she cared more about her career than their relationship. Now she realized that her career was one of the things that defined her, that gave her purpose and satisfaction. That evening she called her sister Lisa. How are you holding up? Lisa asked immediately. Better than I expected, Camille said. I saw a lawyer today. Really? That seems fast. I found out Robert's been seeing someone else. A woman from his office. There was a long pause. Oh honey, I'm so sorry. Don't be. I'm actually relieved to know the truth. It explains everything. Are you sure you're okay? You sound different. I feel different. I feel like I'm waking up from a long sleep. Lisa was quiet for a moment. You know, I always wondered if you were happy. You seemed so focused on making Robert happy, making your marriage work, that I wasn't sure you were taking care of yourself. What do you mean? Remember when we were kids, how ambitious you were? How you wanted to travel and have adventures and build something amazing? When did you stop talking about those things? Camille thought about it. I guess when I got married. Those dreams seemed selfish once I had a partner to consider. But Robert never stopped pursuing his dreams. He changed jobs twice in the past 5 years, always looking for something better. He just expected you to be supportive and stable while he figured things out. The observation hit Camille hard because it was true. She'd been the steady one, the reliable one, the one who kept their life running smoothly while Robert pursued his interests and ambitions. I think I've been living my life for him instead of for myself, she said quietly. And now you get to live it for yourself again. After they hung up, Camille sat in her living room and really looked at her space. During their marriage, she'd compromised on everything. The furniture was Robert's preference, more modern than she liked. The artwork was neutral and inoffensive, chosen to avoid conflict. Even the colors were muted because Robert said bright colors gave him headaches. She walked upstairs to their bedroom and opened the closet. Her clothes were organized and practical, mostly in colors that Robert had said looked good on her. When had she stopped dressing for herself? That weekend, Camille did something she hadn't done in years. She went shopping alone. Not for groceries or household items, but for herself. She bought clothes in colors she loved, deep blues and rich purples that made her dark skin glow. She bought art for her walls, pieces that spoke to her even if they wouldn't match Robert's aesthetic. She rearranged the living room, moving furniture and adding plants and candles. The space began to feel like hers instead of theirs, and the transformation was liberating. On Sunday, she called her mother. I'm proud of you, her mother said after Camille explained what she'd discovered and what she was planning. Your father and I always liked Robert, but we worried that you were dimming your light to make him comfortable. What do you mean? You used to be so vibrant, so passionate about everything. In the past few years you've seemed more contained. Like you were trying to be the perfect wife instead of being yourself. Camille felt tears prick her eyes. I thought I was being a good partner. You were. But partnership should bring out the best in both people, not require one person to become smaller. That night, Camille sat at her kitchen table and made a new list. Not of things she wanted to do someday, but of things she was going to do now. She was going to pursue the promotion she'd been considering. She was going to book the trip to Italy she'd always dreamed of. She was going to take art classes and learn to paint. She was going to become the person she'd been before she'd started trying to be the perfect wife. For the first time in weeks, Camille felt excited about her future. She didn't know what was coming next, but she knew she was ready for it. 3 weeks into Robert's break, Camille had transformed her entire approach to life. She woke up early each morning, not because she had to but because she wanted to. She'd started a morning routine that included meditation, coffee on the back patio, and reading, things she'd neglected during her marriage in favor of rushing around to get Robert's breakfast ready and his work clothes laid out. The house felt different now. She'd replaced the neutral artwork with vibrant pieces that made her smile. She'd rearranged the furniture to create better flow and had filled the space with plants and books. Friends who visited commented on how much brighter and more welcoming the space felt. It's like you've been hiding all this time, Nicole observed during one of their weekly dinners. And now you're finally letting yourself shine. Camille had been thinking the same thing. She'd spent so many years trying to be the ideal wife that she'd forgotten who she was outside of that role. Now, without Robert's opinions and preferences to consider, she was rediscovering herself. At work, her newfound confidence was paying off. She'd pitched 3 new campaign ideas to her boss, all of which had been approved. Her colleagues were responding to her energy and creativity, and she'd been asked to lead a major project for a high-profile client. I want to talk to you about your future here, her boss, Margaret, said during their weekly meeting. You've been doing exceptional work lately. Thank you, Camille said, feeling genuinely proud of her accomplishments. I'm creating a new position, Senior Creative Director. It would mean a significant salary increase and more responsibility. Are you interested? Camille didn't hesitate. Yes, absolutely. Good. The promotion would be effective next month. Congratulations. As she left Margaret's office, Camille felt a surge of excitement. This was exactly the kind of opportunity she'd been hoping for, the kind of career advancement she'd talked about with Robert but never pursued because it would have meant longer hours and more travel. Now she didn't have to worry about how her success would affect anyone else. She could focus on building the career she'd always wanted. That evening, she called Patricia to update her on the situation. Any word from Robert? Patricia asked. He called yesterday. He wanted to know if I was ready to talk about working things out. I told him I wasn't ready yet. Good. Let him think you're still hoping for reconciliation. It'll make him less likely to hide assets or make any major financial moves. I feel like I'm being dishonest. You're protecting yourself. There's a difference. Has he asked about coming home? No. He said he's still processing and needs more time. Which means he's still involved with the other woman. Any new evidence? Camille had been keeping track of Robert's spending, noting the pattern of expensive dinners and gifts. She'd also driven by his office building a few times, telling herself she was just in the neighborhood but really hoping to catch a glimpse of him with Rebecca. The charges on his credit card are getting more frequent and more expensive. He bought jewelry last week from that place on Oak Street. Document everything. Take screenshots, print statements, keep records. If he's spending marital assets on another woman, we can argue for reimbursement during the divorce proceedings. How long do you think this will go on? Hard to say. Some men string things along for months, enjoying the freedom of separation while keeping their wives as backup plans. Others make quick decisions once they're comfortable with their new relationships. What should I do? Keep doing what you're doing. Focus on your career, your finances, your future. Don't wait for him to make decisions about your life. After the call, Camille sat in her newly rearranged living room and thought about the woman she'd become over the past few weeks. She was stronger, more confident, more decisive. She was sleeping better, eating better, and feeling more energetic than she had in years. She was also, she realized, happier. Despite the betrayal, despite the uncertainty, despite the pain of her marriage ending, she was genuinely happier than she'd been in a long time. The realization was both liberating and heartbreaking. How long had she been unhappy without realizing it? How many years had she spent trying to force contentment in a relationship that wasn't fulfilling her? She thought about the last time she and Robert had laughed together, really laughed. She couldn't remember. She thought about the last time they'd had a deep conversation about their dreams and fears. Nothing came to mind. Maybe the break hadn't been about Robert finding himself. Maybe it had been about both of them discovering that they'd grown apart without realizing it. But while she was using this time to become a better version of herself, Robert was using it to pursue another woman. The thought still stung, but the pain was different now. It was the pain of betrayal rather than the pain of loss. She didn't miss Robert, she realized. She missed the idea of Robert, the security of marriage, the comfort of routine. But she didn't miss the man who'd been taking her for granted, who'd been emotionally absent even when he was physically present. The next morning, Camille did something she'd been thinking about for weeks. She called a real estate agent. "I want to know what my house is worth," she told the agent, a woman named Carol who came highly recommended. "Are you thinking of selling?" "Maybe. I want to understand my options." Carol walked through the house, taking notes and measurements. "You've done a beautiful job with the space. The updates you've made are exactly what buyers are looking for right now. What kind of market are we looking at? For a house like this, in this neighborhood? You'd have multiple offers within a week of listing. The market is very strong right now." Camille felt a thrill of possibility. She'd always loved the house, but it was filled with memories of her marriage. Starting fresh in a new space might be exactly what she needed. "Can you put together a market analysis for me?" "Of course. I'll have it to you by the end of the week." That evening, Camille called her sister to share the news about her promotion. "That's wonderful," Lisa said. "I'm so proud of you. You sound like yourself again." "I feel like myself again. It's strange, I thought I'd be devastated by all this, but I'm actually excited about the future." "You should be. You're brilliant and talented and beautiful. Robert was lucky to have you, and if he's too stupid to realize that, it's his loss. I just wish I'd figured this out sooner." "You figured it out when you were ready to. Everything happens for a reason." That night, Camille went to bed in the center of her king-size bed, sprawled across the space that had once been shared. She thought about the woman she'd been a month ago, anxious, accommodating, always worried about keeping everyone else happy. That woman felt like a stranger now. The woman she was becoming was confident, independent, and focused on her own happiness and success. When her phone buzzed with a text from Robert asking if they could have dinner soon to talk about everything, Camille felt nothing but calm determination. She was ready for whatever came next. 4 weeks to the day after Robert had asked for his break, he called Camille at work. "I think it's time we talked," he said, his voice carrying a forced casualness that didn't fool her. "Can we have dinner tonight? Somewhere neutral?" Camille looked at her calendar, which was fuller than it had been in years. She had a client meeting, a gym session, and plans to meet Nicole for drinks. Her life had become rich and busy in ways that surprised her. "I'm free at 7, she said, though she wasn't. She'd have to reschedule with Nicole, but this conversation needed to happen. "Great. How about that Italian place on Main Street?" The irony wasn't lost on her. He wanted to meet at Milano's, one of the restaurants where he'd been taking Rebecca. She wondered if he'd chosen it deliberately or if he'd simply forgotten that she'd seen his credit card statements. "Fine," she said. "I'll see you there." She spent the afternoon preparing for the conversation the way she'd prepare for a difficult business meeting. She reviewed her notes about his spending, her conversations with Patricia, and her own goals for the discussion. She wasn't going to let him control the narrative. At 6:30, she changed into a navy blue dress that made her feel confident and professional. She applied her makeup carefully, not because she wanted to look good for Robert, but because she wanted to feel powerful. Milano's was exactly as she'd imagined, dimly lit, intimate, the kind of place where Robert had probably held Rebecca's hand across candlelit tables. The hostess seated her at a corner table, and Camille ordered a glass of wine while she waited. Robert arrived 10 minutes late, looking nervous and slightly disheveled. He'd lost weight, she noticed, and his hair was longer than usual. He looked like a man who'd been living an unsettled life. "You look good," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "Really good. Thank you." The waiter appeared and Robert ordered a beer. They made small talk about the weather, about work, about nothing important. Camille could see him working up to whatever speech he'd prepared. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he finally said. "About us, about our marriage, about what I want." "And what do you want?" Camille asked, though she already knew the answer. "I want to try again. I want to come home and work on our relationship. I think this time apart has been good for both of us." Camille took a sip of wine and studied her husband's face. He looked sincere, but she could see the uncertainty in his eyes. He wasn't sure she'd take him back, and that knowledge gave her power. "Why now?" she asked. "Because I realize how much I miss you. How much I miss us. I was confused before, but I'm not anymore." "What were you confused about?" Robert shifted in his seat. "I don't know. Everything. I felt trapped, like my life was predetermined. But I realize now that was just fear talking. Fear of commitment, of growing up, of accepting that I'm not 25 anymore." It was a good speech, Camille thought. He'd clearly practiced it. But it was also completely dishonest. "Where have you been staying?" she asked. "At Tyler's, like I told you." "The whole time?" "Yes, the whole time." "Why?" Camille reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She unfolded it and placed it on the table between them. It was a copy of his credit card statement, with the relevant charges highlighted in yellow. Robert's face went pale. "What is this?" "Your credit card statement. I've been paying our bills, remember? I couldn't help but notice some interesting charges." He stared at the paper, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. "Camille, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. But I'm not interested in explanations. I'm interested in the truth. The truth is that I made a mistake. I got involved with someone, but it didn't mean anything. It was just. Her name is Rebecca Chin. She works at your office. You've been seeing her for at least 3 months, probably longer. You didn't ask for a break to find yourself. You asked for a break to be with her without feeling guilty about cheating on me." Robert's hands were shaking as he reached for his beer. "How do you know about Rebecca? Does it matter? The point is that you lied to me. You've been lying to me for months. I wanted to tell you." "When? When were you going to tell me? When you decided you wanted to marry her? When you were ready to file for divorce? Or were you just going to keep stringing me along indefinitely?" "It's not like that." "Then what is it like, Robert? Explain it to me." He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the table. "I was scared," he said finally. "Scared of hurting you, scared of ending our marriage, scared of making the wrong choice. So you decided to make every wrong choice possible. I never meant for it to happen. Rebecca and I, we were just friends at first. We worked together, we talked, we understood each other. And then one day it became something more." "When?" "Last summer. We were working late on a project and we ended up talking about our lives, our relationships. She was going through a breakup and I was feeling disconnected from you. We kissed and everything changed." Camille felt like she'd been slapped. Last summer. They'd been having problems for almost a year, and she'd been trying to fix their marriage while he'd been building a relationship with someone else. "So you've been emotionally cheating on me for 8 months. I wouldn't call it cheating. What would you call it?" Robert was quiet again. "I don't know. I was confused. I love you, Camille, but I also have feelings for Rebecca. I didn't know how to choose." "So you decided not to choose. You decided to have both. That's not fair." "Fair?" Camille's voice rose slightly and she forced herself to lower it. "You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been ending our marriage before you started a relationship with another woman. Fair would have been being honest with me about what you were feeling instead of making me think there was something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. Then why wasn't I enough? Why did you need to look elsewhere?" Robert looked miserable. "I don't know. I wish I could explain it, but I can't. Rebecca and I, we just connected in a way that felt new and exciting. With you, everything felt routine. Because we're married, Robert. Marriage is routine sometimes. It's also commitment and partnership and showing up for each other even when it's not exciting. I know that now. That's why I want to try again. I want to choose you." Camille almost laughed. "You want to choose me? After 8 months of choosing someone else?" "I ended things with Rebecca. As soon as I realized I wanted to save our marriage, I ended it." "When?" "Last week." "So you've been with her this entire month?" "Yes, but nothing. You asked for a break so you could be with her guilt-free. You let me think you were soul-searching when you were actually playing house with another woman. And now that it's over, you want to come back to me like nothing happened. I'm hoping we can work through this." Camille stared at her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, and felt a profound sense of clarity. "No. No. No, we can't work through this. No, I don't want to try again. No, I'm not interested in being your backup plan when your affair doesn't work out." Robert's face crumpled. "Camille, please. I know I screwed up, but I love you. I've always loved you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have spent 8 months lying to me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have asked for a break to be with another woman. If you loved me, You would have ended our marriage honestly instead of trying to have it both ways. I was scared. You were selfish. And you're still being selfish now, asking me to take you back because your affair didn't work out the way you hoped. It wasn't about the affair not working out. It was about realizing what I'd lost. You lost at the moment you decided to lie to me. You lost at the moment you chose to build a relationship with someone else instead of working on ours. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling between them. Camille felt oddly calm, as if she'd been preparing for this moment for weeks. What do you want to do? Robert asked quietly. I want a divorce. The words hung in the air like a judgment. Robert's face went white. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Can we at least try counseling? Robert, you've been having an affair for 8 months. You lied to me about why you wanted a break. You've been spending our money on another woman. What exactly would we tell a counselor? We could tell them that we want to save our marriage. You want to save our marriage. I want to end it. Robert reached across the table and tried to take her hand, but she pulled away. I don't understand, he said. A month ago you would have done anything to save our marriage. What changed? Camille smiled, and it was the first genuine smile she'd felt in his presence in months. I did, she said. I changed. I remembered who I was before I spent 8 years trying to be the perfect wife. I remembered what it felt like to be happy. And you're happy without me? I'm happy without this version of you. The version who lies and cheats and expects me to be grateful when he decides to come back. Robert looked like he was going to cry. I don't know what to say. There's nothing to say. It's over, Robert. It's been over for months, but I was too blind to see it. She stood up and put on her jacket. I'll have my lawyer contact yours. We can do this the easy way or the hard way, but we're getting divorced. Camille, wait. But she was already walking away, leaving him sitting alone at the table where he'd probably sat with Rebecca, probably planning his future with another woman while his wife waited at home for him to figure things out. For the first time in weeks, Camille felt completely free. The call came at 8 o'clock the next morning. Camille was getting ready for work, humming along to music and feeling lighter than she had in months, when her phone rang. This is Patricia. Robert's attorney called me first thing this morning. He wants to contest the divorce. Camille sank onto her bed, the good mood evaporating. What does that mean? It means he's going to try to drag this out. He's claiming irreconcilable differences and asking for a 50-50 split of all assets, including the house. Can he do that? He can try. But given what we know about his affair and his spending, I think we can fight it successfully. The question is whether you're prepared for a battle. Camille thought about the man she'd sat across from last night, the one who'd tried to manipulate her into taking him back after betraying her for 8 months. I'm ready. Good. Because it's going to get ugly. Men like Robert don't like losing control, and you've clearly taken control of the situation. The next few weeks were a blur of legal documents, depositions, and discovery requests. Patricia had been right. Robert was fighting dirty. He claimed that Camille had been emotionally absent during their marriage, that she'd prioritized her career over their relationship, that she'd been difficult to live with. It's classic blame shifting, Patricia explained during one of their meetings. He's trying to make you the villain in this story. Let him try, Camille said. I have documentation of everything. Indeed she did. The credit card statements showing his affair-related spending. Screenshots of Rebecca's social media posts that coincided with his purchases. Even witness statements from friends who'd seen them together in restaurants. But Robert wasn't going down without a fight. He'd hired an aggressive attorney who specialized in high-conflict divorces, and they were challenging everything from the value of the house to Camille's claim for spousal support. The stress was taking its toll. Camille found herself waking up at 3 in the morning, her mind racing with legal strategies and worst-case scenarios. She was losing weight and struggling to concentrate at work. You need to take care of yourself, Nicole observed during one of their lunch meetings. You look exhausted. I'm fine, Camille insisted, though she wasn't. I just want this to be over. How's Robert handling it? According to Patricia, not well. His relationship with Rebecca fell apart after I filed for divorce. Apparently, she didn't appreciate finding out that he'd been trying to reconcile with me while still seeing her. Good. Let him see what it feels like to lose someone he cares about. But Robert's personal problems were making the divorce proceedings more difficult. He seemed determined to punish Camille for rejecting him, and his attorney was filing motion after motion to delay the process. He's being vindictive, Patricia said. This is about more than money now. He's angry that you didn't take him back, and he's using the legal system to try to hurt you. So what do? We fight back. Are you ready to play hardball? Camille thought about the woman she'd been 4 months ago, the one who would have done anything to avoid conflict. That woman was gone. What do you have in mind? We expose everything. The affair, the spending, the lies. We make it clear that this marriage ended because of his choices, not yours. The turning point came during Robert's deposition. Under oath, he was forced to admit to the affair, to the lies, to the months of deception. His attorney tried to minimize it, but the facts were damning. So you asked your wife for a break from your marriage in order to pursue a relationship with another woman? Patricia asked. I asked for a break because I was confused about my feelings, Robert answered. But you were already involved with Miss Chin at that time? Yes, but... And you used marital funds to pay for dates with Miss Chin? I paid for dinners and gifts, yes. Expensive dinners and gifts. While your wife was at home, paying the household bills and believing you were taking time to work on yourself. Robert's face was red with embarrassment and anger. I was working on myself. By having an affair? By trying to figure out what I wanted. And what you wanted was to have both your wife and your mistress. She wasn't my mistress. What would you call a woman you were romantically involved with while married to someone else? Robert's attorney objected, but the damage was done. The transcript would show a man who'd betrayed his wife's trust and then lied about it repeatedly. After the deposition, Robert tried to approach Camille in the hallway. Can we talk? He asked, looking desperate. Through our lawyers, she replied, not breaking stride. Camille, please. This is getting out of hand. She stopped and turned to face him. You made it get out of hand when you decided to contest the divorce. You made it get out of hand when you decided to fight me on every single detail instead of accepting responsibility for your actions. I just want what's fair. Fair would have been ending our marriage before you started seeing someone else. Fair would have been being honest with me from the beginning. Fair would have been accepting my decision to divorce you instead of trying to punish me for it. Robert looked like he was going to cry. I never meant for it to happen this way. You meant for all of it to happen. You meant to have an affair. You meant to lie to me. You meant to try to manipulate me into taking you back. The only thing you didn't mean was for me to find out and stand up for myself. I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't give me back 8 months of my life that I spent trying to figure out what was wrong with our marriage while you were building a relationship with someone else. She walked away, leaving him standing alone in the courthouse hallway. That evening, Patricia called with good news. Robert's attorney wants to settle. They're willing to give you the house and 70% of the assets. What changed? Your husband realized he's not going to win this. The evidence is too damning and his story keeps changing. His attorney probably advised him to cut his losses. What about spousal support? 2 years of support while you transition to single life. It's a good deal, Camille? She thought about it for a moment. Part of her wanted to keep fighting, to make Robert pay for every lie he'd told and every month of deception. But another part of her just wanted to be free. I'll take it, she said. Good. I'll draft the settlement agreement. You should be divorced within the month. That night, Camille sat in her living room and looked around at the space that would soon be entirely hers. She'd won, but victory felt different than she'd expected. She wasn't triumphant or vindicated. She was just relieved. 8 months of lies and manipulation were finally ending. Soon she'd be free to build whatever life she wanted, without having to consider Robert's opinions or feelings or needs. For the first time in years, her future belonged entirely to her. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday morning in early June, exactly 6 months after Robert had asked for his break. Camille signed them at her kitchen table, the same table where Robert had told her he needed to find himself. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was officially single for the first time in over a decade. Patricia called that afternoon to confirm that the papers had been filed and that the divorce was final. Congratulations, she said. You're a free woman. Thank you for everything, Camille replied. I couldn't have done this without you. You could have and you would have. You're stronger than you think. That evening, Nicole insisted on taking Camille out to celebrate. They went to a new wine bar downtown, one that had opened during the months of legal proceedings. So how does it feel? Nicole asked, raising her glass. Strange, Camille admitted. I thought I'd feel more. Something. Happy, sad, angry. But I mostly just feel relieved. Relief is understandable. You've been through hell. The weird thing is, I don't think I'd change anything. If Robert hadn't asked for that break, if I hadn't found out about Rebecca, I might have spent years being unhappy without realizing it. You're giving him too much credit. I'm not giving him credit. I'm just acknowledging that sometimes bad things lead to good outcomes. Nicole smiled. Look at you, all philosophical. What's next? Camille thought about the question. Her life felt wide open in a way it hadn't in years. I'm going to Italy. I booked the trip last week. By yourself? By myself. 2 weeks in Tuscany, exactly what I've always wanted to do. What about work? Margaret's been incredibly supportive. She said I've earned the time off, and she wants me to come back refreshed and ready to take on more responsibility. They talked about travel plans and career goals, but Camille's mind kept drifting to Robert. She wondered how he was handling the divorce, whether he was still in contact with Rebecca, whether he regretted his choices. She got her answer the next day when her sister called. I ran into Tyler at the grocery store, Lisa said. He told me Robert's been struggling. Struggling how? Apparently the thing with Rebecca fell apart completely. She wanted nothing to do with him once she found out he'd been trying to reconcile with you. And he's been having a hard time at work. Something about people knowing about the affair and losing respect for him. Camille felt a pang of something that might have been sympathy. That's tough. Tyler said he's been asking about you. Wondering how you're doing, whether you're seeing anyone. I hope Tyler told him it's none of his business. He did. But he also said Robert seems to finally understand what he lost. Tyler thinks he's genuinely sorry. Good. He should be sorry. Are you okay hearing about this? Camille considered the question. Yeah, I think I am. I don't feel angry anymore, just indifferent. His problems aren't my problems anymore. It was true. The rage and hurt she'd felt months ago had faded into something more like pity. Robert had made his choices, and now he was living with the consequences. That weekend, she had lunch with her mother, who'd driven up from Atlanta to check on her. You look wonderful, her mother said, studying Camille's face across the restaurant table. Happy. I feel happy. Different but happy. Tell me about this promotion. Camille filled her mother in on her new role as senior creative director, the project she was leading, the team she was building. Her mother listened with pride evident in her eyes. Your father and I always knew you were capable of great things, she said. We just worried that you weren't allowing yourself to reach your full potential. What do you mean? You spent so much energy trying to be the perfect wife that you forgot to be yourself. Don't get me wrong, we loved Robert and we wanted your marriage to work. But watching you these past few months, seeing you come back to life, it's been remarkable. I feel like I'm finally living my own life instead of the life I thought I was supposed to live. That's exactly what you're doing. And I'm proud of you for having the courage to choose yourself. That evening, Camille went for a walk in her neighborhood. The summer air was warm and soft, and she found herself noticing details she'd missed during the chaos of the divorce proceedings. New flowers in her neighbor's gardens, a family of ducks that had taken up residence in the pond at the park, children playing in their yards. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, stressed and unhappy but unaware of it, focused on maintaining a marriage that had been slowly dying. That woman felt like a stranger now. The woman she was becoming was confident, independent, and genuinely excited about the future. She had plans, travel, career goals, hobbies she wanted to pursue. She had a life that belonged entirely to her. When she got home, she found an envelope that had been slipped under her door. Her name was written on the front in Robert's familiar handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a brief message. Camille, I know I have no right to contact you, but I wanted you to know that I understand now what I lost. You were the best part of my life, and I threw it away for something that was never real. I'm sorry for everything I put you through. I hope you find the happiness you deserve. Robert. Camille read the note twice, then folded it and put it in a drawer. She felt nothing, no anger, no sadness, no desire to respond. It was simply a piece of paper from a man who was no longer part of her life. She made herself dinner and settled onto her couch with a book about Italian art history, research for her upcoming trip. As she read about Renaissance painters and their masterpieces, she felt a sense of anticipation about the adventures waiting for her. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nicole. Dinner tomorrow? I have someone I want you to meet. Camille smiled. She wasn't ready for anything serious, but she was ready to open her life to new possibilities. She typed back, sure. I'm curious. As she got ready for bed, she looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at her was different from the one who'd lived in this house 6 months ago. This woman had stronger shoulders, brighter eyes, and a smile that came easily. This woman knew who she was and what she wanted. This woman was ready for whatever came next. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Camille stood in her empty living room, surrounded by boxes and bubble wrap. The house had sold within a week of listing, just as Carol had predicted. The new owners were a young couple who'd fallen in love with the space and the neighborhood. "Are you sure about this?" Nicole asked, sealing another box with packing tape. "This place is beautiful." "It's beautiful," Camille agreed, "but it's not mine anymore. Too many memories, too much history. I'm ready for a fresh start." She'd bought a modern condo downtown, close to her office and the restaurants and cultural attractions she'd been exploring. The space was smaller but felt more like her: clean lines, lots of light, and a view of the city that made her feel connected to the world around her. "Have you heard from Robert?" Nicole asked, though she already knew the answer. "Not since that note he left. I heard from Lisa that he moved to Charlotte. Got a new job with a smaller firm. Tyler says he's been keeping to himself, not dating anyone." "Good. Let him figure out what he actually wants instead of bouncing between women." Camille taped up the last box of books and looked around the room one more time. When she'd first moved into this house with Robert, she'd imagined growing old here, raising children, building a lifetime of memories. Instead, she was leaving with a deeper understanding of who she was and what she deserved. "I'm proud of you," Nicole said, following her gaze. "Not everyone would have handled this with such grace." "I didn't feel graceful. I felt like I was falling apart most of the time. But you didn't fall apart. You got stronger. You got smarter. You got free." The moving truck arrived at noon, and by evening Camille's old life was packed away. She spent her last night in the house on an air mattress in the master bedroom, listening to the familiar sounds of the neighborhood settling into sleep. In the morning she handed over the keys to the new owners and drove to her condo. The space felt like a blank canvas, ready for her to fill with whatever made her happy. Her first visitor was her mother, who'd driven up to help with the unpacking. "This is perfect for you," she said, standing in the living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "It feels like you." "That's what I was hoping for." They spent the day arranging furniture and hanging artwork, transforming the empty space into a home. Camille had chosen pieces that reflected her personality: bold colors, interesting textures, art that made her smile. "Tell me about Italy," her mother said as they took a break on the balcony. "It was incredible. I spent 2 weeks just wandering through museums and cafes, taking art classes, meeting people. I felt like I was discovering parts of myself I'd forgotten existed." "Any romantic encounters?" Camille laughed. "A few flirtations, but nothing serious. I wasn't ready for that. I was too busy falling in love with myself again. And now I'm open to possibilities. Nicole's been trying to set me up with someone from her office, but I'm not in a hurry. I'm enjoying my independence." It was true. The past few months had been the most fulfilling of her adult life. Her career was thriving, her social life was rich and varied, and she'd rediscovered hobbies and interests she'd neglected during her marriage. She'd started painting again, something she'd loved in college but had abandoned in favor of more practical pursuits. She joined a book club, taken up hiking, and was learning to speak Spanish. Her days were full of activities she'd chosen for herself, not compromises she'd made for someone else. "I'm happy for you," her mother said. "You deserve all of this." That evening, after her mother left, Camille sat on her new couch and called Patricia to thank her again for her help during the divorce. "I have some news you might find interesting," Patricia said. "I ran into Robert's attorney at a conference last week. He mentioned that Robert had been asking about you." "Asking what?" "Whether you were seeing anyone, how you were doing, whether you seemed happy." His attorney told him it was none of his business, but he seemed preoccupied with the subject. Camille felt a flicker of something that might have been satisfaction. "Well, he can wonder all he wants. I'm not his concern anymore." "Exactly. And from what I hear, you're doing better than ever." "I am. I really am." After they hung up, Camille walked to her bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back was confident, radiant, and genuinely happy. Her skin was clear, her eyes bright, her smile genuine. She thought about Robert, alone in Charlotte, wondering about the woman he'd lost. She thought about Rebecca, who discovered that dating a married man wasn't as romantic as she'd imagined. She thought about all the people who'd watched her marriage fall apart and wondered if she'd be okay. She was more than okay. She was thriving. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nicole. "Dinner tomorrow? James really wants to meet you." James was the colleague Nicole had been talking about for weeks. A recently divorced lawyer who loved art and travel and was, according to Nicole, exactly your type. Camille looked around her new home, at the life she'd built for herself, at the future stretched out before her like an adventure waiting to happen. She typed back, "Yes. I'm ready." She wasn't ready for marriage or even a serious relationship, but she was ready to open her heart to new possibilities. She was ready to share her joy with someone who would appreciate it, someone who would support her dreams instead of trying to contain them. As she prepared for bed in her new space, Camille felt a deep sense of gratitude. Not for the betrayal that had ended her marriage, but for the strength she'd discovered in herself. Not for the pain she'd endured, but for the growth that had come from it. She'd lost a husband, but she'd found herself. And that, she realized, was the better deal. 1 year after Robert had asked for his break, Camille stood in the conference room of her office, looking out at the city skyline as she prepared for the biggest presentation of her career. The marketing campaign she developed for a major retail chain had exceeded all expectations, and the client was flying in from Los Angeles to discuss expanding their partnership. "You ready for this?" James asked, appearing in the doorway with 2 cups of coffee. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied, accepting the cup gratefully. James had become a constant in her life over the past 6 months. What had started as a casual dinner set up by Nicole had evolved into something deeper, though neither of them was in a hurry to define it. They both understood the value of taking things slow, of building something real rather than rushing into intensity. "You're going to be brilliant," he said, squeezing her shoulder. "You always are." The presentation went even better than she'd hoped. The client was impressed not just with the results of her campaign, but with her vision for their brand's future. By the end of the meeting, they'd agreed to a 3-year contract that would establish Camille as one of the most sought-after creative directors in the city. "Congratulations," Margaret said after the clients left. "This is exactly the kind of success that leads to bigger opportunities." "What kind of opportunities?" "The kind where you start thinking about opening your own agency." The idea had been percolating in Camille's mind for months. She'd always dreamed of running her own company, of building something from the ground up. Now, with her reputation established and her confidence soaring, it felt like the right time. That evening, she and James celebrated at her favorite restaurant, the one where she'd had her first dinner as a single woman nearly a year ago. "So tell me about this agency idea," he said as they waited for their appetizers. "I've been thinking about it for a while. I have some money saved, plus the settlement from the divorce. I know the market, I have connections, and I have ideas that I think could revolutionize how companies approach marketing." "What would you call it?" "Camille Grace Creative. I want my name on it. I want to build something that's entirely mine." James smiled. "I love that. You should do it." "You think so?" "I think you're the most talented and driven person I know. If anyone can make it work, it's you." As they talked about business plans and timelines, Camille felt the familiar thrill of possibility. This was how she'd felt when she'd first discovered her independence. Like the world was full of opportunities waiting for her to seize them. After dinner, they walked through the downtown area, past the condo building where she now lived, past the wine bar where she'd celebrated her divorce, past the coffee shop where she'd run into Tyler all those months ago. "Do you ever think about him?" James asked, as if reading her thoughts. "Robert? Sometimes. But not in the way you might think. I don't miss him or wonder what would have happened if things had been different. I just wonder if he's figured out what he was really looking for. And if he has, then I'm happy for him. Everyone deserves to find their place in the world." They stopped in front of her building and James took her hand. "What about you? Have you found your place?" Camille looked up at the windows of her apartment, glowing warm and welcoming in the darkness. She thought about the life she'd built, the career she loved, the friends who supported her, the man beside her who appreciated her exactly as she was. "I'm still figuring it out," she said. "But I think I'm closer than I've ever been." 2 weeks later, Camille received an unexpected email. It was from Robert, sent to her work address since he no longer had her personal information. "I know I don't have the right to contact you," the email began, "but I wanted you to know that I heard about your success. Tyler mentioned that you're starting your own company, and I wanted to say congratulations. I always knew you were capable of great things. I'm sorry it took me so long to realize that I was holding you back instead of lifting you up. I hope you're happy. You deserve all the good things that are coming your way." Camille read the email twice, then forwarded it to Nicole with a single comment, "Interesting." Nicole called immediately. "How do you feel about this?" "Honestly, I feel nothing. It's like getting a message from a stranger." "Good. That means you've really moved on." "I think I have. He's part of my past now, not my present or my future." That afternoon, Camille met with a lawyer about incorporating her new business. As she signed the papers that would officially establish Camille Grace Creative, she thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, Uncertain, accommodating, living her life in reaction to someone else's choices. That woman felt like a distant memory now. The woman she'd become was confident, independent, and utterly unapologetic about pursuing her dreams. She'd built a life that was entirely her own, filled with people who supported her ambitions and celebrated her successes. She'd learned that happiness wasn't something you found in another person. It was something you created for yourself. As she walked back to her office, Camille's phone buzzed with a text from James. "Dinner tonight? I have something I want to talk to you about." She smiled, feeling a flutter of curiosity. Whatever he wanted to discuss, she was ready for it. She was ready for all of it, the challenges, the opportunities, the love that came without conditions or limitations. She was ready for the life she'd built, and for all the possibilities it held. That evening, as she prepared for dinner with James, Camille looked at herself in the mirror one last time. The woman looking back was radiant, successful, and genuinely happy. She was surrounded by love and opportunity, and she was exactly where she belonged. She thought about Robert, probably still trying to figure out what he wanted, still looking for something outside himself to make him feel complete. She felt a moment of genuine pity for him, but it was distant and impersonal. His story was no longer connected to hers. Her story was just beginning, and she was the author of every chapter. As she headed out to meet James, Camille felt a profound sense of gratitude, not for the betrayal that had ended her marriage, but for the strength she'd discovered in herself. Not for the pain she'd endured, but for the woman she'd become because of it. She'd asked for nothing more than honesty and commitment, and when she didn't receive it, she'd had the courage to walk away and build something better. The revenge she'd taken wasn't cruel or vindictive. It was simply living well, succeeding brilliantly, and refusing to accept less than she deserved. And as she stepped into the warm evening air, surrounded by the lights of the city she'd made her own, Camille knew that this was only the beginning of her story. The best was yet to come.